Where we're hearing today from Pete Hegseth, the American Defense Secretary, by video link, saying this: the US appreciates all the work, quote, you guys are doing. That is because his European allies, more than 50 defense ministers today, now filling the gap on funding Ukraine's military defense. It's been left as a result of Washington's change of geopolitical priorities. Germany, the UK, chairing the meeting in Brussels today with 21 billion euros pledged for missiles and other defence support. It comes amidst reports of a new intense Russian offensive in the north of Ukraine. All this on a day where, this time a month ago, that first no extras ceasefire truce was put on the table by Kyiv and Washington. So what's been achieved today on a day which has seen talks on the so-called coalition of the willing as well? Let's hear from both the UK and the German defence ministers.
Peace in Ukraine appears to be out of reach in the immediate future. We will ensure that Ukraine continues to benefit from our joint military support.
The new pledges of military aid announced today through the UDCG total over 21 billion euros. From the UK, we will spend £4.5 billion this year in military support for Ukraine, our highest ever level. And today I'm announcing £350 million to surge that support into the hands of Ukraine's frontline fighters.
Let's cross to Brussels. Let's bring in the EU's first ever Commissioner for Defence and Space, appointed last year, Andrius Kubilius, the former Lithuanian Prime Minister, twice over. Great to talk to you this evening, Commissioner. First of all, were you in the room today? Does the EU Defence Commissioner get a seat? Because I'm interested in how the contact group works and a format next to the EU and essentially what the coalition of the willing, as you understand it, is setting out to do.
Well, today I was not sitting around that table. I was sitting yesterday when it was discussion about security guarantees for Ukraine. The conversation which was led by French Defense Minister and British Defense Minister. So today it was something like a new type of Rammstein format, and it's very good and important that member states, which were giving a lot of support to Ukraine till now, they are pledging to give it even more, because this is the only way how this formula of just peace through strengths, can be implemented, because Ukraine needs to get additional strengths in order to show to Putin that he will not achieve anything in Ukraine. And that additional strength can come only from European Union member states, and we hope from the United States also.
I mentioned before, Andrius, we are a month to the day when we had this proposal put forward from Kyiv and Washington, the idea of a ceasefire, which has since kind of gone into the wind. Many conditions, which many critics would say is simply to stall. There's no interest in peace. I'm guessing many people that you sat around the table with in Europe yesterday, and the same today, don't believe there's going to be any truce anytime soon. What's your verdict on whether or not President Trump has actually changed the game in any way from his predecessor?
Well, at least it becomes clear that this American initiative to achieve peace, and all of us we want peace to be established, it is sabotaged by Russian side, and it's absolutely clear that Putin does not want peace and does not want ceasefire, because I can guess that he imagines that he is winning in this war, that Ukrainian side, with all the Western support, is a weaker side, and that will continue till both we and the United States, especially President Trump, will not put this development into different way, strengthening, first of all, Ukrainian side. So that is very good that today member states, European Union member states, pledged, and also other states which are in this coalition of willing countries, pledged additional support. We just recently approved in Commission, and now it's discussed in the Council, so-called safe financial loans mechanism, a very attractive loan supported by European Union, and in those loans can be used also by member states in order to have joint procurement with Ukraine from Ukrainian industry and for Ukraine. And I hope that those loans will be used by member states really to strengthen Ukrainian capabilities in a sufficient way.
Commissioner, I'd like to talk about those loans in a moment. It's a good point that you raise. I also want to wonder, in your view, whether the EU has a leverage now to get back in the room on Ukraine peace talks alongside the US and Russia, like President Zelensky wants to see, because as a result of this Black Sea truce, which hasn't appeared to happen, Russia said it wanted extra measures. It wanted sanctions on it lifted, including from Europe, the SWIFT system, banking system, which is based in Brussels. It's also billions of frozen assets in Brussels too, and around Europe. Is that a way to force the door open, that you can't be accused, like President Trump did in his words on President Zelensky, of not having any cards?
Well, I don't know how those negotiations could be held in a better way, more effective way. Should both Ukraine and the European Union should be invited to participate in the same conversation with the Russian side. I'm not so sure that it would be most effective, but European Union is doing, and member states are doing a great job in discussing among themselves and preparing very concrete plans for security guarantees to Ukraine after ceasefire or peace will be established. From another side, we are really developing also all the needed plans with their implementation, how to strengthen Ukraine itself in a military way, because the best security guarantee for Ukraine will be really its own military strength. That is what Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was repeating not once. So that is our way of doing, everything what is needed in order for peace on the European continent and in Ukraine to be established.
It'd be really very interesting to get your insight on the public optics of the Americans, the government, the Trump administration, the talk between themselves. Let's remind ourselves, for example, Signalgate recently, where we had the frustrations vented about Europe from the Vice President J.D. Vance and also Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth, saying, "I hate bailing out Europe again." And Pete Hegseth responds, the Defence Minister say, "I fully share your loathing of European free-loading. It is, quote, pathetic." Have you met either of these men in the course of their visits to Europe? And if so, are you getting a different private behind-the-scenes conversation and take than that we're hearing either to each other behind your back or publicly?
No, I had no possibility to meet them, for time being. We had meeting with General Kellogg at the very beginning of his mission. But I would say in a very simple way, when I was nominated as future commissioner for defense, I said very loudly that we need to take into account two most important challenges to our security in different timeframes. One is Russian aggression against Ukraine and possibility of Russian aggression against the EU and NATO member states in the nearest future. As intelligence services are saying, before 2030, Russia can be ready for that. And second, longer-term challenge is related with Chinese rising military power, and that this rising military power of China can force the United States to shift the resources, military resources, more and more towards Indo-Pacific, and diminishing their presence on the European continent. And that is why we really need to take care. We need to take responsibility about European defense onto our shoulders. We need to recognize that till now, we were in some way expecting that this job will be done by Americans while we were enjoying so-called peace dividends. So time for such kind of dividend is over. And we need, and all our plans are now how we need to increase our defense capabilities, both to deter any kind of Russian aggression, but also in order, in longer term, to take those responsibilities on our defense, which now are very heavily dependent on American assistance.
We need to talk about fish, Commissioner, because here's a bizarre story. Talking to sources within Downing Street, And you may have heard of this. I want to know what's going on between the French and the Brits at the moment, because you talked about this loan part, this access to, quote, rearm Europe at 800 billion euros that countries can get access to. Now, reports are that France is limiting British access essentially over a sticky patch, because the agreement post-Brexit on fishing quotas runs out at the end of this year, Christmas Eve, and the French are saying, well, you can be part of this pact, you can have access to more money, join the EU Defence Pact, but first let's sort out the fishing. Now, in your view, when you're overseeing this, does it seem a little bit flippant?
Well, perhaps I'm not the best expert on fishing, but I was enjoying yesterday and in all the different occasions, very clear leadership of Defence Minister of Great Britain and Defence Minister of France sitting together, organizing really very big developments, both to support Ukraine and to take care about the development of our own defense capabilities. And for me, it looks like, such kind of leadership, real partnership in taking very strong steps forward in our common defense. A very clear sign that Britain and we Europeans and France, we are all together in this job. So I don't, I hope that, some issues, as always, quite important issues like fishing, but they will be resolved in order for us to take care about most important challenge of today, and that is a challenge of towards our security, which demands from us to develop defense capabilities. And Britain has a lot of what to add to and to be partnering together with us when we are talking about European Union defense capabilities.
Let me ask you about China. And Kaja Kallas, your colleague, the EU High Commissioner on Foreign Affairs, saying this today: China could easily stop the war, quote, if it's so decided. Without China, Russia could not sustain the war on the same scale. I mentioned that NATO considers China a key enabler of Russia's war, yet I'm just interested in the trade winds that are going on, that President Xi saying that he wants to see Europe unify and stopping the, quote, bullying from President Trump. What you're making on the messages that need to come from Europe right now and how they operate, because if I'm right in saying that 80% is the quote that is seen as the dual-use goods, that is, goods that can be used ordinarily for the public and also for defence, for military, that Russia is using for its military coming from China. What's your take on the importance of China to Russia in Ukraine?
Well, definitely, it's... for time being, it's quite a complicated issue because definitely, with United States administration tariff policy, all of us, we were hit or were promised to be hit by the tariffs, and that is what creates some kind of common worries around the whole world. And from another side, definitely, we see that what the High Representatives have said, that Chinese support to Russian military efforts is really very, very crucial. And, we can just hope that at some time China will understand that such a support does not bring any kind of benefit to China itself, because I would, hope that China better would try to behave in such a way which would create an image that China is serious when she talks about respect to international law and respect to the sovereignty of the countries, which for time being does not look very credible.
Meanwhile, Commissioner, as you and I are talking, the Special Envoy for President Trump, Steve Witkoff, is in St. Petersburg. He's due, we're told, to meet with President Putin. That will be the third time since February. Let's take a listen to what the Kremlin Special Advisor and press spokesperson Dmitry Peskov had to say about that meeting a short while ago.
Work is ongoing, meticulous work, exchanges of views, bringing each other's concern to one another's attention. That is why it is such a meticulous work. One should not expect any breakthroughs here.
It's interesting, I've listened recently to somebody you know very well, Alexander Stubb, the former, the current Finnish president, who was talking about playing golf recently with Donald Trump, going to see him. Some people call him the Trump whisperer, and saying that you need to give Putin a deadline of the 20th of this month. Otherwise, this is going to roll on. He will snowball this, and it won't end. And you've been, you're well aware of your days as Lithuanian Prime Minister of dealing with him. Is he right? Or is Steve Witkoff right, who says, give Putin a chance, let him come to the wicket?
Well, no. My knowledge of Putin and in general of Kremlin behavior is very simple. If they feel weakness, they are attacking and they are becoming aggressive. If they feel strength, they understand the strength. And that is what can convince them, to change their behavior. And so I don't know what President Stubb, discussed with President Trump, but it looks like that, at least we can read in media, that President Trump is going to issue a very clear demand for Russia, for Kremlin, for Putin, to agree on ceasefire before the end of this month. So that would be a good step forward. In general, we need to understand in a very clear way that there is possibility to stop the war in a very, I would call, simple way.
Yeah.
Just there is a need only for Putin to decide to withdraw his troops and the war will be over.
Yeah.
We need to remember that Putin started the war and he is responsible to stop the war. But for time being, it looks like that he wants more to continue and to play some kind of, games of his style. To not to make any kind of decisions, and that is what I hope that also President Trump will start to understand.
Commissioner, there's barely a time to come up for air for you right now. How busy your job is. Great to talk to you, Andrius Kubilius, EU's first ever Commissioner for Defence and Space, former Lithuanian Prime Minister. Thanks again. And stay with us.